It's time for the King Louie OG and Slimeboat Jones SLIMECAST. Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of the King Louie OG and Slimeboat Jones SLIMECAST. It is our first episode. We're happy to have you along for the ride, and I'd like to take this opportunity to allow Slime himself to introduce himself.
How you doing, everybody? This is Slimeboat Jones. Me and King Louie go way back. We met each other in school, and we're both avid gamers. We have different tastes. A lot of the times, every once in a while, we like the same game. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our introduction to video games, kind of the first games that we've played, and how it's influenced the games that we play nowadays. So with that, King Louie, what was the first game that you remember playing?
Well, considering that it was not my system at the time, it was my older brother's system. He had a Super Nintendo. And there was a handful of games. Obviously, you don't develop a memory right away, so there's a handful of games that I can remember playing, watching him play, but I'd say it's a collection here that would start with Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time.
Classic.
Zelda, A Link to the Past. The Power Rangers side-scroller game that I can't remember the exact title of. And the Power Rangers fighting game that I can't remember the exact title of. Also Star Fox. Those were the games that I remember the most from my early youth. But as far as games that I actually owned and played was the N64 and No Mercy. WWF No Mercy was my first game that was actually mine that wasn't my brother's.
Yeah, that's really interesting because all of the games that you just mentioned on the Super Nintendo, for me, I didn't play until way later in life. I've played all of those games, but not until I was a young adult. So just really, really interesting. My first games that I played, and we'll get into it a little bit deeper, I actually started out playing the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. So my kind of similar situation to you, and I think this is kind of similar for a lot of people our age, where you kind of have the older brothers and older sisters. You kind of dip into their gaming catalog, you get introduced to it. But my older sister had a Game Boy original, and we played Super Mario Land.
Oh,
and
let me interject real quick. The other game I forgot, speaking of Mario, was, I forget which one it is. It's the one with Mario riding Yoshi on the cover.
Okay, that's Super Mario World.
Super Mario World was also one of the games I played early on. So
all right, continue. So you started out with all some of the best games ever made. I played Super Mario Land, which is I think it's one of the games that is less talked about in the Mario franchise. I feel like a lot of people actually haven't played it. It's very short. You can beat it in about 30 minutes, but I remember growing up not being able to beat it because you have to beat it all in one shot. So you'd end up playing the first 3 or 4 levels in a row, and over and over again. And it took me a really long time. It wasn't until I was much older where I was actually able to beat it, and that was a big accomplishment for me to finally
you beat it on the Game Boy?
And I beat it on the Game Boy, yeah. And I still have it to this day. I think I lost my original copy and had to repurchase it, but I still own the original Game Boy, and I still have some original Game Boy games. It's really interesting. I think that to this day, I still like Mario games, and I really like platformers, and I think it goes back to that original game that I started with.
Well, it's perfect for me to say then, because like I said, those weren't my games, those are my brother's games. I didn't actually have a save file of my own until Pokemon Yellow for the Game Boy. Even though my brother had red and blue, he also got yellow, but I wasn't allowed to play red or blue because obviously he had his saves on them. So I was able to play yellow for the first time, and that was my first actual save of my own. And I'd say that shaped what I do now because I'm very big into JRPGs, and yellow is pretty classic as far as that's concerned.
So out of those original that you had mentioned, though, which one did you like the most? Because
probably Turtles in Time.
Okay. And were you able to beat that as a kid, or
no? I still have yet to beat that game to this day. I think I got to, I forget. It's not Bebop or Rocksteady. It's the other two guys. The guy with the shell, like the shell armor, the turtle guy.
Oh.
He's a bastard. Because you fight him once, I think, in the Shredder's spaceship or whatever the hell it is early on. But then you fight him again
before he sends you in the past.
Yeah, and then you fight him again in a desert, and it's that battle is notorious for being the battle where the difficulty ramps up.
Oh, okay.
And it's fuck that guy.
I think it's interesting, just going back to playing games as a kid in general. I think people's expectations are different now, because I remember being really content not being able to beat a game, and just really working at it for a while. Like I said with Mario, I didn't beat it until years and years later. But nowadays there's an expectation where you play it right through. There's an easy mode. You beat it. You're expected to get all the way through it. You're not expected to really grind. It reminds me of after the Game Boy, the next gaming system that we had as a family was the N64. And I think we got Diddy Kong Racing and Cruisin' USA with it that Christmas, and those were great games. Classic Nintendo games. Diddy Kong Racing holds up. I would say you can go back and play it. Cruisin' USA is unplayable if you go back. But a game, and I don't know if you did this, Louis, a game that I used to rent all the time, and I would continue to rent it even though I couldn't progress.
For sure.
Even though I couldn't progress, was Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time. I remember renting that probably 20 times before even making it to Hyrule Field, and I was really young. So I remember not knowing where to get the sword for a long time, not knowing what you needed to do, but I was so young that I had fun just running around, jumping, finding the rupees. And that's another one that, as I got older, I was able to beat. And I just played it through recently, and that's one of my favorite games to this day. It's a classic.
I think the game I think it was PS2. It was one of the wrestling games for PS2 that I rented a whole bunch to the point where it was I had it for months. But I don't remember specifically which one. But yeah, renting video games, that's a whole nother topic for
it's
a whole
something that
day.
Kids do not have to
they
deal
don't understand.
With. Yeah.
It's not only obviously you say it's an archaic thing, but it's when you think back to when you would go with your parents to Blockbuster, and it was what a joyous feeling it was walking in there. It's seeing the walls, and this is the light, everything looked so good, and it's just you had all these fond memories, not only getting games but movies too. God, what a great place. These kids, they have everything at their fingertips now.
Something that I've noticed with my nephew and a couple other youngins, that I try to introduce them to certain video games and some of the stuff that I played when I was their age, and all they want to do is they want to play Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite and which is, those are good games. Not really my style, but those are good games. But the thing is that back in the day when we were younger, we didn't have as many, you couldn't just play the most popular game.
Right.
You kind of got what your parents got you for Christmas. You didn't really get to pick and choose only what your rental
those games
store
are all
had.
freemium, so you could just download them right on your phone.
Yeah, there's no barrier to entry. When I was younger, it's you kind of got what you got, and you there's games that I played as a kid that I wouldn't even give a chance nowadays, but I gave it a chance then because that's what you had. Yeah, really interesting.
That's how I feel about Pikmin. I got Pikmin for Christmas one year. I still can't stand that game. It's just not fun. Anyone who likes Pikmin, I feel for you. I don't know what you see in it, but it is just not a fun game. But that's neither here nor there, because I would like to say that based on the fact that, like, I think, like I was saying with Yellow, I didn't have my own actual game till Yellow, that all the games I played after that, and I remember playing, like, because I'm sure there was a bunch of PS2 games that I played that I can't remember because there was just so many damn PS2 games. But, like, the majority of the games that I got for me, that, like, were for my birthday or for Christmas, you know, with my name on it, were majority PS2 games, only a few early N64 games. And they were all basically RPGs, JRPGs, maybe a fighting game here or there. But
so you didn't have the PlayStation 1?
I did have PlayStation 1.
But it was your brother.
Those were... when I got the N64, my brother got the PlayStation 1, and I would end up playing all of those PlayStation 1 games on PS2, because, you know, backward compatibility and whatnot. So, like, I would... You know, I'm sick of No Mercy, and I remember... I'll never forget going to my brother and picking up Final Fantasy VII and saying, I think it's time, I want to play this. And he said, I don't think you should start with this one. And he gave me Final Fantasy IX instead, which was the right choice because it's less inventory managing. It's less, like strategery. It's pretty self-explanatory. This equip gives you this ability. You learn it. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's a good ability I could put on with my points. It's like, I think Final Fantasy IX is a better game than Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is just so fondly remembered and, you know, just loved to such a degree. But as far as classic JRPGs go, Final Fantasy IX is a better game. Because everyone will tell you who's ever played Final Fantasy VII is that there's so much unused materia and, like, item management and just constant crap that it's like, it gets old after a while.
Yeah, and that turns me off of a lot of JRPGs. Obviously, very young, I had Pokemon Red, and on the N64 I had Mario RPG, on the N64 I had Paper Mario, and much more simpler games designed for a younger audience. And I didn't play a serious RPG game until way later in life. And most of the games that I grew up with were simpler platformers. I had shooters as well, and I never really got into the JRPGs, and like still to this day, I like games that are a little bit more simpler, stuff that you don't have to invest as much thought into it, unless it's a game where it's like a Bethesda game or something like that, where it's more of like a Western style RPG. Those I can get into, obviously not influenced by the games that I played when I was younger, but still play Mario to this day, still play Zelda, love the Yoshi games. I like the Pokemon games, although I've grown out of those.
So for me, because you are obviously the opposite end, you were more the platforming kid. I, as a kid, and even now, suck at platforming games. Other than Oddworld, I was able to get every achievement on the remake of Abe's, the first Oddworld game, which is why I'm so looking forward to the new one coming out, because I fucking just love Oddworld. It's the only platformer that I ever liked and ever was good at. Other than that, like every Mario game...
Well, that's not true, because you played Donkey Kong 64, and that's a platform.
Oh, Donkey Kong 64 is a different beast, though, because it's just like... It's also like an action-adventure game.
Yeah.
Like, it's
also notoriously hated nowadays.
I don't know why. Yeah. I love that game. Lanky Kong for life. Lanky Kong for Smash still never happened, but that would make my day. I love Lanky Kong. Lanky Kong is my guy.
Speaking of Smash, and this is kind of off topic, and maybe in the future what we'll do is we'll go into certain franchises and stuff, but did you play the first Super Smash Bros. When it first came out?
The original Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64 I had very limited experience with early on, because, like I said, the N64 was mine, so the video game selection was limited. I think early on I had Pokemon Stadium, Hey You Pikachu, and WWF No Mercy. Like, that was it for a while. And then I got Biomutants, which is a really, really underrated fighting game that if anyone goes back and finds Biomutants, it's a great game. Really revolutionary, like,
had a lot
3D fighting game that was like a lot of people don't talk about. It was really good.
I liked Clay Fighter.
Clay Fighters is another game I had for Super Nintendo, which also had one of the greatest introduction songs ever. But for as far as Smash Bros is concerned, my mom's friend who lived, because I was born in Vegas, my mom's friend who lived in Vegas had a daughter who was my sister, my friend, and my brother's friend because she was our age. She had N64 and she had Smash Brothers. So I had very limited time playing at her house, maybe once or twice. And I remember specifically getting mad because I sucked at Break the Targets when I was, this is when I was 4 years old. Something like that. And I didn't, but then I got in 5th grade, Mike D, if you remember him, brought in, we had game day, and I forget if it was, I think it was 5th grade. I think it might have been early, maybe 3rd grade or something. But he brought in, because I brought in the GameCube, but he brought in Smash Brothers. And we literally just, like, on one of the TVs, it was me, Mike, Kelly, and I think maybe Alex was there, but we played Smash all day at school on that game day one day, and then, like, I had to buy it, and then I loved Smash ever since. So that's a fond memory there.
Yeah, I think the first time I played Melee, I had slept over my friend's house or something, and his older brother had it. It's just interesting because nowadays, like, going back to what we were saying before, like, you have everything at your fingertips. It's all downloadable, things like that. Like,
and things are just online, and you could, like,
things are online.
Play with your friends instantaneously.
It's like very rarely. Is it like, oh, you
it's
go
not
to
an
a
event
friend,
anymore.
you go to a friend's house and, like, they have some game that you've never, like what is that? Like, I've never seen that.
And there were
before.
no game trailers either. Very rarely were game trailers on TV too, so it wasn't a lot of exposure. You had to look for it.
Well, there wasn't YouTube back then.
No, but even like you would see maybe the odd, Pokemon commercial or the odd Mario, like.
I remember the first Smash Brothers commercial.
It was a big deal when Final Fantasy, I forget which one, had like a Coke commercial. It was like, whoa, it was like, this is a big deal. Video games and mainstream and whatnot. Like, this is 1997 or 1998, whatever it was. And it's like, you think now, and then you think 10 years later from then when there was everything Halo 3 ever at 7-Eleven. Like, how quickly that changed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Now, okay, I got a question for you, Louie. So, you started with the Game Boy a little bit, and then you had the N64, the PlayStation 2. Do you feel like you missed out on some games that came out, like, before your time? Or were you able to go back and play some of it?
As far as stuff that came out before my time, I still probably would like to go back and play Final Fantasy, because I tried playing Final Fantasy IV, but it was the remake, and it was like chibi and like not cool. It was on like my iPad or something. I tried to download it. It just was, I can't play a game on my iPad. So I want to go back. I want to play 4 and I want to play 6, because everyone I know who played all the Final Fantasies say 6 is the best one. 6 is their favorite. So I should probably eventually play 6. But
I know you like the 6 soundtrack.
I was waiting. There's a few tracks on there that even though you haven't played the game, you just listen to them. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Because 7, 8, and 9, and 10, and 12 are all on Switch. And it's like, everyone's waiting for them to put 6 on Switch. And that's what I'm waiting for. When they put 6 on Switch, that's when I'm finally going to play it. So if they never put it on, I might as well just, go in the corner and...
Like I said at the beginning, the games that you first mentioned were some of the games that I had to go back and play. So I never had a Super Nintendo. My neighbor down the street had a Super Nintendo. I forget what we used to play on there. Bomberman or something. I can't remember. And but I ended up acquiring through a tag sale when I was a teenager maybe like 14 or something, I ended up getting a Super Nintendo, and I got like 40 games, the system, 2 controllers, and the Super Scope for $10.
It was just,
I fleeced an older
14?
lady who didn't know any better, and her son wasn't around, and she was selling his stuff, and I got it for $10, and it was the best. Like, some of those games are worth $40 that I have now. And I was able to kind of go back and play a lot of games that were way before my time. Super Mario World was something that I had experience with on the Game Boy Advance because they had remade it later on. But I went back and I played the original. Same thing with Yoshi's Island. Played for the first time when I was way older. Donkey Kong Country I played when I was way older.
How could I forget Donkey Kong Country? That was even more than Turtles in Time. That was my favorite game on the Super Nintendo when I was
And that
young.
game is not
I played with my brother
It's
too.
an era of gaming where the games were hard,
unforgiving,
and unforgiving. And
yeah.
if you know what you're doing, like there's a lot of like shortcuts and stuff,
things to exploit,
and you can get through it pretty easily. Like if you know what you're
back
doing.
Then,
but when you're a kid, it's just a different beast.
Tough.
And, I remember not being able to play those until I was much older.
I got, I think, all the way to the last place before K. Rool by myself, and then my brother had to beat a few of the missions for me later in the game, and then I remember facing K. Rool, I don't know, 80 times before I finally beat him, because I was just like, as a kid, you just suck. You don't grasp things like, it's like now you go back, it's like, okay, dodge 1, dodge 2, dodge 3, hit him. It's like, as a kid, you're like, and as you go back, and it's like things like Lion King for the Super Nintendo are almost unplayable. They're so difficult. But yeah, that's why they're like folklore. Like people like never even saw like Simba grow up in those games. It's from time to time because people struggled so much.
That's how I felt about Ocarina of Time, where you would hear almost like these legends about certain aspects of the game that were very mysterious because you just couldn't get there almost like or rumors like back then you could really fall for a lot of tricks. But even the stuff that was true, it still had this air of mystery around it, and it just like really like it added to the theme of the games a lot of the times.
That's just an off topic, but it reminded me because of the lore and the mystery is the classic Mew under the truck.
Yes.
In Gen 1 for Pokemon, I had heard things as a kid. I had, seen... Because kids had Game Sharks. My brother had a Game Shark. People had Mew and stuff, and they started the game with Mewtwo and whatnot, but there was always the rumor that, like, oh, you don't need a Game Shark, you can get Mew. This, that, and the other, and then like...
Which is true.
But that's what I'm getting to. So eventually it's like, oh, it's not true. And I never found it. It never worked. You can't even get Surf in the right time frame to do that without doing this. Yeah. And it's like unfeasible almost. But then you finally, maybe 8 years later, you have like, internet for the first time, like in your house. Like that's not just your dad's computer that you're not allowed to touch. Like you have internet. And there's like sites all for Pokemon you had no idea, and then you find, oh, if you do this way and you don't fight the Slowpoke trainer and then do this, and me and my boy Pat, I'll never forget, we're in his room, we had the N64 pack where we had yellow version, I believe, in the controller pack, playing it on his TV. And we were like sweating,
like through Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah. We were like sweating, like, is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? And like, we got to the point where we're in Lavender Town, and you go into the route, and that's when the game pauses, and then as you exit the pause, Mew will attack you because it's the glitch. And it was like the Mew popped up, and I was terrified because like we both jumped up and like we're like yes, and he almost dropped the controller with the game in it. So I was like, oh my god! It was like, oh, it's like, that's like a memory you'll never forget because like, it wasn't just a legend. Like, we had Mew legitimately without a Game Shark. Like, it was real.
I think it's really interesting. I go back, because you're talking about Pokemon, and I think that's something that's a game franchise that me and you both, a little less nowadays with the newer iterations.
I'm still up on it.
But especially for like the first 4 or 5 generations, me and you really align that those are like really classic, like legendary games, especially Gen 1.
I'd say, yeah, Gen 1 through 4.
Yeah, really, really good.
I'd say can be... Gen 5 was the beginning of the people falling off, them trying new gimmicks.
But what I'm trying to get at is I'm surprised at a time where, like, if you went online, there was a lot of fake rumors even online, and then you couldn't even have access to it all the time because you had to unplug your phone to get online, stuff that kids don't have to deal with nowadays.
Dial up.
But something that I find really funny, thinking back on it, is we would find glitches like the missing no glitch, and to be able to duplicate items and to corrupt certain data without having to look it up on the internet. It was hearsay.
Yeah.
And I remember like my cousin telling me, oh, you gotta surf at this specific spot, and we thought it was like,
well, I think that's more of a testament to Pokemon in that time, where every kid
was talking about it.
Every kid, boy and girl, wanted to watch the show, play the games, trade the cards. Literally, I remember, like I said, my sister, my friend Tara, who had Smash Brothers, I was in her cul-de-sac. I traded something for a Pidgeotto or something. Like, every kid on her block, we were trading cards. It was like, it was that time when it was its peak hot. Pokemon was everywhere. Like,
I have a really funny story about the cards.
And it's just like, so it just is a testament that the glitch was found by, whether it was
like organic means.
It was either the rich kid who had the internet at the time, or like someone actually found it and it spread like wildfire because it had the means to spread, which is like, even now, like, if it was something like Fortnite would be the only thing these days that I'd say could have that impact, where if there wasn't everyone...
I think Minecraft for a while was that, where they had like certain glitches when you got out to like the outer edges, you would get to like some weird like corrupted data. Like, I feel like that's the closest thing recently that kind of came to that.
Right, yeah. But it's like, maybe Halo, when everyone started playing online video games, but other than that, like... that was the time when everyone in our age group was talking about the same thing.
So this is not necessarily on the same topic. It has to do with Pokemon. It has to do with, our older siblings and stuff. So I went to this summer camp, and at the time, my older brother had Pokemon cards, and I looked up to him. I was really young. I might have been like 5 or 6. And he had his Pokemon cards, and we went to summer camp, and people were actually battling. And they had like the little stones that you would put
like
on,
marble
like
things.
the marble things,
the
little glass,
the counters.
little beads. Yeah, so
they came with the starter decks.
And I never got super into the card game because I liked the video games.
Yeah.
But I remember my brother going in and thinking that he was hot shit and challenging
Knowing
somebody.
your brother, that's hilarious.
And challenging somebody, and I remember, like, he got completely, like... Annihilated.
Yeah.
Like, I remember so specifically, the guy had, like, a Venusaur card that was, like, really cool looking, and my brother had, like, a Bellsprout. They, like, switched in, even though it was damaged already, and all the kids were, like, oh my god, like, pretended like they were afraid and shat on him. Like, oh, and I, like, still remember it to this day, because it was, like, your older brother getting completely, like, humiliated.
See, that was the opposite.
It's very
like,
good.
My exposure to the Pokemon card game was my brother just shitting on me religiously. So it was a bit of an opposite story there.
Well, me and you, I think we have a little bit of like an opposite situation in the sense that like your brother was like up on his video games, and like he's like kind of like I wouldn't say nerdy, but like he's definitely like falls within that realm.
Right,
he's into computers. He's super smart. I don't know. He went he learned about computers.
Yeah,
like,
no,
on
he
in
knows.
life.
Yeah, he knows his computers and stuff.
And he's into gaming and stuff like that. Where my brother, he wasn't into that sort of stuff. Yeah, so like as we got older, he got less and less interested in video games. and really it was like me and my oldest sister were into video games. She liked Resident Evil
and Mario.
Yeah. I remember I had fond memories of her playing Super Mario 64. And, you know, I had that growing up, classic game. And then I also remember her playing Resident Evil and playing Nemesis, and me watching really, really young, watching that. And my older cousin, too, had Resident Evil. I remember watching him play that, and I was, like, too young to be watching it.
See, now, for me, my brother also loved Resident Evil, would play it all the time, and it would be on, like, I would see it, but it's like, I never cared. Like, I wasn't scared of it. It was like, you know, you're walking slow and kind of shooting like zombies, and like I was far more interested in games where guys had huge swords and like fire blasts, and like I don't know, that might have just been me as a kid, but even now, like any like horror movie, horror game, usually it's like the fact that it's going for the horror aspect diminishes the funness of it being a game or the wellness of it being a film. So it's like, I for lack of a better term, I look down on it, honestly. Like, I feel like I'm hoping Resident Evil, 8 now coming out? I'm going to get it, and I'm going to play it. I'm hoping it's going to... Village, yeah. I'm hoping, because I like 4.
Yeah, 4 is a great... 4 is great,
4 is a great... Aspects. Right, but it's also a good game.
Yeah.
Whereas Resident Evil 3, I just remember my brother running from... What's the dude with the hat? Nemesis?
That's Resident Evil 2. Right, okay. Mr. X.
Mr. X, but who's the giant thing is Nemesis in Resident Evil 3.
With the tentacle.
The tentacle monster,
the rocket launcher.
Yeah. I just remember like going through a bunch of doors, and it just seemed really boring, and then like Nemesis was there.
Well, 3 is definitely not as good as 2. And it's apparent in the remakes too.
I didn't ever see, I only saw a little bit of 2. I think my cousin had it. I don't think my brother had 2. So I never really saw 2 until a little later, which is all my cousin had GoldenEye, and it was like revolutionary to me at the time. I couldn't believe like multiplayer like games where we're just running around shooting each other. Like, it was so good.
I think that was the only game that, other than maybe Bomberman 64, but that was like the only game that like I actually had 4 people on the N64 all playing all at once.
No, there was one other game, and it was Duke Nukem.
Oh, okay. I never had that.
And it was the same. It was a great game, but it's also another one of those games you go back and you try to play it. It's hard, and it's just like not great. Didn't age well.
It's interesting how like some games can age better than other games. It's usually
the simpler games aged better.
Yeah, the simpler games aged better.
Because that's just anything with art. When you try to push a boundary for a time, it ends up becoming passé because like everyone just starts pushing that boundary, and it's like, oh well, cool.
Okay, so on the N64, another game that I love it because of nostalgia, but if somebody hasn't played it before, they're probably not gonna like it. I wonder if you ever played this one, Louis. Turok. Dinosaur Hunter.
I owned it. I played it. I sucked at it. I couldn't get past the first like misty jungle level, and I tried, I don't know how many times I tried to load that game up and play it. I never got past the first level. And I don't have fond memories specifically because I sucked at that game so bad, or I just didn't know what I was doing or where I was going.
So you never got to where there was like robots and cyborgs?
Nope. Nope. All I remember is running around in the mist in the forest jungle area in the beginning, because that's all I played. Because that's all I could do. Because I had no idea what to do. Because again, didn't have game facts or internet, and it's like even now I say game facts. It's like game facts. It's like that's even old now.
I remember super cheats or game cheats or something.
Game cheats, super cheats. My go-to was game facts back in the day. But now it's like all you do is you just
go to YouTube.
You just go to Google search, and you'll get videos or you'll get just like articles from different sites that have everything you need. It's like there's no one place to go anymore. Like,
well, it's become such a big industry now.
Well, yeah, but
which is there's a whole other host of problems with it becoming.
Well, that's why Fortnite exists, is because it's an industry.
Well, I think there is definitely a trend to where games are less about the art form and more about like just making money.
Right.
That's why I still personally to this day like the Nintendo games because they still view it as an art form. You know, you look at something like recently I played Yoshi's Crafted World, Yoshi's Woolly World. I played those games recently. I played Luigi's Mansion, the new one, number 3, where it's like they really take the time and effort to make it like an interesting setting where you could tell like they had fun just making the rubber duckies in the game, fly around. Like they had like every little aspect of it they had fun doing. You could tell the way that they did it, that the developers really had fun. And then you play a game like Fortnite, and you have Thanos doing the floss,
fighting Chun-Li.
It's just, it's like how many crossovers and references can you jam into one game?
It's overexposed, diluted, reprocessed, rechewed garbage, and it's another thing that had a boom with like everybody. Everybody played Fortnite when it first came out. Not me, I never got into it. But I know, like, a bunch of people played it when it first came out, but then it just got to be one of those things where it's just like, okay, that's what 9-year-olds are going to play, so no one else is going to play it anymore. But as far as art and, like, the care and the love of games, Nintendo definitely, but there are others out there. Like, you obviously never played Final Fantasy VII, but the Final Fantasy VII Remake is a testament of like to their love and their respect and their reverence of what they created and how beloved it is.
Well, I think Square is like a similar company to Nintendo in the sense that they are like a legacy company and also been around.
Also, as similar to Nintendo, they had like a 10-year period where they just were not doing the right thing. Like,
and then they learned.
And now they're hopefully like Final Fantasy VII Remake was the first. Okay, they're getting their act together again. They did this right, so we're going to hope that the next part of Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 16 follow suit. But at this point, it's still up in the air, so we got to hope. And it's, considering Final Fantasy VII Remake was so good, like spectacularly good, I have high hopes, but I wouldn't, at the other end of the spectrum, I wouldn't be surprised to have those hopes completely demolished and crushed.
That's how I feel about Bethesda, where it's like I have zero hope that, even though I love
Elder Scrolls,
I love Oblivion, I love Skyrim. I went back, I played Morrowind. It was tough, but I still liked it.
It's hard to go back and play Morrowind.
I had to heavily mod it in order to play it, but still really, really good.
Fallout 3 is a masterpiece. 3 is
good. I recently played that, as you know, Louis, and one thing that I'm just not looking forward to is I'm not looking forward to anything that they're going to do next.
Well, that's why I'm hoping Microsoft giving them, billions of dollars in funding background-wise, that they'll be less, likely to pull a scam show like they did with 76. But also, like, Fallout 4 had so much promise, and they did a few things right, but there was just so many things wrong with Fallout 4, to the point where, I played that game for probably 100 hours, 120 hours. But it just, like, I've tried to go back to it, I tried to mod it, like, the game couldn't even handle, like, heavily modded stuff, like, it's just not well built. It was clearly running on an engine far too old, and then they came out and said Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are going to run on the same engine that like has had the same issues for literally 15 years now, since 2006. Like, it's just not smart. It's like, I'm hoping now they have all this money, they might, make a new engine for Elder Scrolls 6, or they might not, say 16 times the detail and then have sun rays that come out of my leg. These type of things that we forgave them for back in the day because they made great games that were fun, that were, endlessly playable. Even if you you dropped your Orcish greatsword through the level and you lost it forever. It's like, I don't want to start a new game because this game's so good. I'll get over it and get a new weapon.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have we'll do a whole podcast on Elder Scrolls.
But as far as hopes for the future is concerned, that's you have to look at these things and take them all into account when saying their time may just be over unless they knock the next thing out of the park.
Well, that's kind of how I feel about... there's a couple game companies that we grew up with that just... They made mistakes, and then never could come back from it. But then also certain game companies that just completely changed direction. One that I'm thinking of is Bungie. So, like, I used to love... Halo, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. I remember playing Halo 1 really, really young, and I think Assault in the Control Room was the first level that I ever played. I was like smack dab in the middle of the game, no explanation, instantly loved it. That's the hardest, longest, not the hardest level, but definitely the longest level in that game, and really, really loved it. Loved Halo 1, 2, 3, all the way through. And then they just kind of like changed to Destiny, the looter shooter genre, which I'm not a fan of. And what else have they done? You know, they kind of like fell off the face of the earth.
They put all their eggs into the Destiny basket.
And I know that game is like well loved, and you know I'm sure it makes tons of money. But they kind of like left their core audience behind.
Right, and they lost the respect of a lot of people too. In my opinion, like I used to see, like when Destiny was first announced, everyone was like, "Whoa, Destiny is about to be awesome, you know, cool." And then like it came out, and it's like, "Oh,
that's what it is."
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh. And then like Destiny 2 came out, and then people who liked Destiny 1 were even like, "Oh, that's what it is." So they had to make DLC to fix it. It's like that's exactly that's like the problem with art in any aspect. It's like we want to do something different. That's you know, a different artistic vision and a blah blah blah, and it's not as fun because you wanted to do something different for the sake of doing something different.
No, either that or I think the problem with the looter shooter genre is it's specifically designed to get you to spend money.
Well, no, that's only after. That wasn't the original Destiny 1. Was you bought the game and then you played the game. The aspect that Warframe, when it first came out and the first few years of Warframe perfected, was making it fun where you didn't have to spend money, where you could be really good, but it was so good you didn't mind spending money. But then eventually that game got not as good because they just wanted to keep doing more different stuff, and then they lost their vision. But the fact of the matter is that they had a good thing that a bunch of other looter shooters came out and tried to bank on, tried to exploit that like great system they had for a few years, but they never did it right. So like the whole looter shooter genre just became give me your money genre.
What games, Lou, would you say, going way back, like, you know, the first few years of your gaming experiences, what few games do you think are like a must-play game? Like, if you had a son and you said, "Son, you're grounded, you're not going to get out of your room until you beat this one game," you know, it's a must-play game. Like, what are a few, like, the must-plays for you?
See, now, we came up in a time where it was a lot more lenient as far as, you know, what our parents allowed us to play. Because if, you know, as an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, I was playing Fable 1, which you can be a giant gay devil man who has plenty of gay sex, which I have nothing against, but it's like, that's not something you want your 9-year-old or 10-year-old, 11-year-old child to be exposed.
Yeah, I was killing Soviets in GoldenEye at 5 years old.
Right, exactly. It's like a lot of things that flew back in the 90s, early 2000s that like, oh yeah, okay, you know, it's James Bond, let the kids play James Bond. It's like that, it's not necessarily the case now, so like, that's a tough one to say, so probably must plays. That's difficult.
So I got one.
Probably. That's tough. I don't know. What would you do?
So you want to know what's a must-play game, and you mentioned it earlier. A must-play. It's quintessential for the franchise, and I've told you this in the past, but A Link to the Past is a must-play for me. Going way back, and I played that later in life. I told you that before, but that is a game that is absolutely timeless.
See, now that game is another Super Nintendo.
And we'll get
game.
you into games. We'll get you into video games. If you're not super into video games, that will get you into.
It's very difficult if you don't know what you're doing, though.
Yeah, well, you could shepherd them through.
Yeah, but that's not if it's going to be a rite of passage, son. You know.
Well, not the first game you ever played.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if it's going to be a rite of passage, you're not getting any help. Like, This isn't participation award ceremony here.
Well,
this
gives you enough hints. It's not like the first Legend of Zelda game where if you just gave that to a kid and said play it and didn't give them any explanation, they're playing that for like a whole year before they get through it. Just to trial and error beat it.
Yeah, but at the same time...
Which you've never played that game, have you?
No, I played it. I never beat it. Yeah. Oh, wait, no. I'm talking about Link to the Past. I've never beat A Link to the Past.
You've never beaten Link to the Past?
I got to the Dark World, I believe, and then, it got... lost my way and never played it.
Oh, man. Here I'm saying it's a must-play, and you haven't beaten it?
Oh, I played it for, hours and hours and hours and hours. It was, one of those games that I just never beat, though, because, we were...
King Louis Let's Play.
Nah, maybe. Maybe. There's a lot on the docket. Maybe a slime play. Who knows? And maybe another game. Probably that definitely. I just thought of the one I would say would be Kingdom Hearts 1. Because that's something Disney. Happy fun times.
So that's really
interesting.
But
it's a game that you could play on easy. You could choose to play that game on easy. You can choose to do a few dialogue options early on that make it so that you level up really quickly in the beginning, and then you get to level 50 really fast, and you're playing on easy, and basically nothing can stop you. But then there's also a way to play on difficult and make it so that in order to get to level 100 without grinding for hours and hours, you have to make it so that you level up slow in the beginning so that you level up fast later. So it's there's all sorts of technical things, but whether or not you play it on easy, the game is very difficult. You have to be good at it later on. You have to beat Sephiroth took me 20 years. I never beat Sephiroth in my first few playthroughs. I barely even got past the Ice Titan on some of those playthroughs. I didn't beat Sephiroth, I think, until I was 19 years old, 20 years old, something like that. But to play that game, you can beat it. You can experience the story on easy. You can do most of the game. But to really master it, that takes patience, and it takes skill, and it takes dedication.
I got another question for you then, because I have this... I claim I'm a Mario fan. I've beaten a lot of the Mario games. I grew up with Mario. But I have this, I don't tell a lot of people this, but there's a certain Mario game that I still can't beat. I probably, if I really, really tried, I probably could force my way through it. But to start the game from the beginning and get all the way through, it's kind of tough. And still, I haven't gone back and spent the time to do it. Is there a game? And I'll let you know after you answer my question. Is there a game franchise that you claim you're a fan of, but there's in the background there's a game that you haven't been able to beat yet?
Well, there's one. It's not that I haven't been able to. It's just that there's two.
You feel guilty. You haven't
haven't
beaten it.
There's two
and you
games
claim you're a fan
in the Kingdom Hearts franchise that I haven't beat, which is Dream Drop Distance. I've watched the whole thing on YouTube because I played Kingdom Hearts 3. Obviously, I need to know what's going on, and I own it twice over. I have it for Game Boy, and I have the remake for PlayStation 4, and also the same thing, which was 2.8, which is the prologue connective piece that was basically a Kingdom Hearts 3 tech demo. That is, it's its own fully fledged game with equips and different things where you play as Aqua in the Dark Realm. I started it, and then I don't know. I think I also had God of War, and I also had Monster Hunter and Red Dead 2 and a bunch of other PlayStation 4 games. So I never ended up playing either of those two Kingdom Hearts games that I planned to play on my PS4. Probably that'll be on the channel for sure if I play both of those, without question. But I'd say those two, and also I never beat Hey You Pikachu.
Well, is that a game that you can even beat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've never played that. I never had
it. It's not fun. That was Nintendo being Nintendo with its gimmick crap early on. It's basically you have to hope Pikachu does what you say, and just spend hours screaming at him, and he's just running around picking flowers, and it's you bastard. It's just eventually it gets frustrating.
So where I was going with it is, like I said, I'm a Mario fan, and a game that I've never beaten to this day, even though I've played it, I've gotten to the last world a whole bunch, is Super Mario 3. Super Mario Bros. 3. I've never actually beaten
Isn't that a notoriously annoying one though?
I wouldn't say it's notoriously hard. I would say that that's probably it's similar to Link to the Past in the sense that it's like the quintessential
Classic.
Mario. It's like the most classic. Like if you wanted Mario in a nutshell, that's what it would be. It would be Super Mario Bros. 3. But towards the end, it's a slog. And you really have to like get your items like built up in the beginning. And there's a way to like kind of like farm items in I think World 3, where you can get to the end with a bunch of items, and that will help you out. But I've never actually beaten the final boss in that game.
See, now that's another thing, like farming. Like, no one used those terms back in the day when we were coming up. Like, oh yeah, you gotta farm XP. No, you just like get XP. Like, it's just funny how there's actual terms now that have developed.
I would have referred to it as grinding.
Grinding.
Right? Yeah, grinding.
Yeah.
You gotta grind up a little bit. Even that's kind of new.
Even that's, not new, but newish.
You gotta level up.
You gotta level your guys up. Like, that would be it. Like, there's just it's funny being in the position we're in, where we really came in at the time where games were really starting to take their stride, and then we got to the point where like people look back at like the golden age of video games, like N64, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, late 90s, early 2000s.
Xbox original.
And then came Xbox with Halo and online gaming, and then you move to...
I'm a Nintendo guy, but I loved the 360. I think the 360 was really good. That was like when gaming was hitting its stride right then.
360 was the only time Microsoft ever won the console battle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was good.
It was Nintendo basically dominated early, then Sony came through. 360 had its one shining era, and then PlayStation took right back over, and Switch came out.
And now it's getting into... It's all PC gaming.
Well, that's because...
I love PC gaming now.
The consoles are also falling into this, like, corporate, like, juggernaut crap where it's, like, it's about being a media entertainment system, and it's not, like... Gameplay is almost secondary at this point.
Yeah.
It's, it's just... The market grows and saturates with people who are looking for different things, and therefore you lose the core of what it originally was.
Yeah, they're trying to please everybody, so therefore gamers suffer a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So, what else can we look forward to on the channel, Louis?
We're going to continue on. There's going to be more Monster Hunter, both of the Rise demo, and I'm going to go back into World, Iceborne, do some things there. Plan on fully exploring Rise when it comes out. And then also I've been contemplating of how I'm going to work in, but I do want to play Demon Souls for my PlayStation 5, so that'll be on there, hopefully, if I get everything running the way I want to. And also in the future, Pokemon Snap, when that comes out, that's going to clear everything else out of the way. In between that, maybe some Oddworld, but that's probably the general direction in the near future.
And for the SLIMECAST, we're going to do once a week SLIMECAST. I figure what we'll end up probably doing is either picking a topic. You guys can leave it in the comments below what you guys want us to talk about. I figure we'll touch on some of the franchises that we spoke about today. I guess today was really just like an introduction into all the stuff that we're kind of into. And there's a couple other key franchises that we didn't really touch on. But we'll do that and kind of keep the conversation going. And hopefully you guys will join us. And you'll be hearing from me about it once a week on the channel.
And probably, if not every day, every other day, there will be continual videos on the channel from yours truly, King Louie OG. We're happy to have you here on episode 1, and we're hoping to have you back for episode 2 and beyond. Thank you very much. Peace.